Hello, everyone. Welcome to this earlier session. And I think maybe more audience are on the way to, to the meeting. So today's session, we are talking about the open source and the ORAN, the software community. And for today's standardization and specification, they are often include the code-like the section. And the open source will facilitate the deployment, the integration of the commercial products, and also will provide the reference, the implementation of ORAN specifications. So today's session, we will hear the ideas and the experience from our partners and of the ORAN Alliance, and the operators, and the vendors, and the academics. So first, we will have the presentation from our operators, China Mobile, and James Lee will give the presentation on the ORAN software community, the projects, the accomplishments, and the ongoing works. And James is ORAN OSC, TOC, the co-chair deputy, and also the OSC INT PTL. And he is deputy director and the principal software architect on the Converged service solutions from China Mobile. Welcome, James.
Thank you. Yeah, again, really appreciate you people can join this very early session. This is the very first time I'm here in Madrid, and I was really surprised that by 8 o'clock, it's still dark outside. So, our session starts so early during the day, but yeah, appreciate it. You be here with me. So, Jiajing already introduced me, and I will emphasize a little bit my role in the ORAN software community. So, I am the PTL, it's called Project Technical Lead of the Integration and the Test Project. So I think because, as you already heard maybe from the past day, for the ORAN to evolve, especially the ecosystem, right? This integration and test plays a very important role. And actually in my presentation, I may have a little bit to cover. And again, I hope by today, after my presentation, you may have a better understanding of what ORAN's software community, I will call it just OSC, in a simplified way. What it is, what its position, and what its, the current work, its accomplishment, and because it is open source, and it's the reference implementation of the ORAN standard, we really call for, participation, a lot of, not from operators. At the same time, we call for like our vendor participation so that we can make this open source community more healthy and more active, and in return, this will basically make this ecosystem to grow faster. All right, so a little bit about the OSC itself. So I already mentioned it's an open source project. It was established in 2019. As you might know, the ORAN Alliance was established in 2018 by a few tier 1 operators. And in 2019, this becomes like a joint efforts from ORAN Alliance with the Linux Foundation. So, and our mission is certainly to have a reference implementation in open source so that it aligns with ORAN Alliance open architecture and specification. And the good thing is that in the past 3+ years, we keep this going, like there's release every 6 months. So far, we already have 6 releases, and it's the ongoing, the 7th, it's called G. I will have some details later on. Yeah, so in general, majority of the code is open source, the standard Apache 2 license. But at the same time, there's another one called ORAN software license. It's essentially for the RAN essential code. We have a few in our code repositories. Okay, this one is a very high-level view of why we need this ORAN SC and how ORAN SC in its its scope and how it aligns with the standardization body, as well as we try to have certain commercialization paths in terms of testing and integration. So you see there are 3 pieces here. Certainly, ORAN Alliance is the governing body. It makes the open architecture, the open interface, as well as some the information models, as well as regarding the hardware with the white box reference design, etc. And for the software community, certainly, we will do as much as possible. It's our reference implementation aligned with the specification, and sometimes actually we are ahead of the specification. So the idea is also, for example, lately there is a new AI/ML project proposed by Samsung. As you might know, intelligence is a major pillar of the ORAN standards, right? So we definitely wanted to have AI/ML into the ORAN ecosystem, but at the same time, some of the specification is not there yet. So we do want to have, contributors come in to do their work, maybe a little bit ahead of the specification, but at the same time, we work with the corresponding work group closely. So it means we may have the capability to push some of the de facto implementation as the standard back into the work group that becomes the specification. So maybe, I will touch it a little bit more later. And another thing is the third pillar is about the OTIC. It's the ORAN testing and integration centers. So this is we issues badges, certificates to our industry partners so that, if their products are aligned or compliant with the ORAN standards, this is the way, we try to have, basically have the vendor interoperability test with the ORAN integration and the certification. So the idea is at the same time, we have this reference implementation, and at the same time, we hold 2 times of it's called a global ORAN Plug Fest. It means, you work with certain OTIC centers all over the globe to showcase your capability, especially you have to be ORAN standard compliant. So that's pretty much, the alignment with the industry. And also, there's the alignment with 3GPP, with TIP, and with others, so. I actually already covered the majority of the key principles. Maybe just to go over it quickly a little bit. The first thing is certainly we try to have this as open source, because if it's still closed source, then it doesn't make our open interface really good, right? So you want to have it as much as possible as open source, provided people can try out our software, can test with certain features we implemented for each release and make it available to the public. At the same time, another piece is about allow this open source to move faster than the standards so that in certain ways we can push it back and make it becomes part of the standards into the future. Certainly, other things would be, if we already have some real implementation, this will have certain inferences, to the ecosystem or to the direction of how we'll proceed with open source. Because in the past, ORAN Alliance is mostly a bottom-up idea. It means for each of the work groups, they work out this very details about different, say, like E2, O1, A1, those interfaces, how it should work, right? But from the past year also, ORAN Alliance, they established is called MVPC. It's called Minimal Viable Product. It's MVP. So they will define, based on existing ORAN standards, that certain things you can put together for certain use cases, as well as, the priorities. For example, AI/ML is one of them, and energy saving is one of the use case that's, MVPC put together as a package. Yeah. One additional one would be, we certainly, as an open source, we use some upstream open source communities like ONAP and others, but at the same time, we wanted to contribute to other open source communities if possible. For example, the collaboration with the Linux Foundation project, it's called 5G Super Blueprint, would be something we want to do, especially in the next release, to make it possible to have an end-to-end 5G Super Blueprint from the RAN all the way to the core network. Okay, some of the organizational of ORAN-C. So mainly, we have a technical oversight committee. This is the one that responsible for all the technical oversight of the open source project, as well, it takes care of the administrative work, like, it approves new repositories, like for new projects and others. And at the same time, in our TOC, there are 12 members. They are appointed by the TSC, the Technical Steering Committee of the ORAN Alliance. So among the 12 TOC members, 6 are operator members and another 6 are our vendor members. So today I'm really happy that we have a few of our TOC member companies, they will present here. So maybe they will have emphasis on certain projects they have a major contribution with. So another important piece for OSC is another committee called the Requirements and the Software Architecture Committee. So now they're co-chaired by Ritwik and David from Google and AT&T respectively. So this committee is the main one, we would say, main of the task for this committee is the focus is on mostly on the technical side. So they will do a lot of release planning, like, for example, our G release, what's the goal of this release would be, what's achieved, what's in place and what we are going to achieve. At the same time, they also oversee like the lab development, because as an open source community, we really would like to have a community lab that can be used by the general public, right? So you should be able to use the community lab to practice and at the same time, have, say, the testing pipelines to make use of the ORAN reference implementations up to date. At the same time, they will organize, it's called spring demos, because we will take this agile methodology in our development. So every once in a while in the release, there's going to be spring demos so that we will see like what are the new features already developed and how it interacts with other projects. So at the same time, we have weekly meetings like every Wednesday and Tuesday, to discuss as needed, the topics and the progress. Yeah, I'm not sure whether you will be able to see all the details regarding the projects. I will not actually go through each of them, but per the ORAN architecture, basically, the majority of the projects are aligned with the network elements like, a non-real-time RIC, near real-time RIC, and at the same time, with the near real-time RIC, we have a separate RIC app. That's the X apps that we develop, and today we will have people from HCL to talk about it, and with more details. And certainly others will be like OAM, CU, DU, and in the future maybe RU, and you can see at the bottom of the list, it's the AIM framework project recently established, and Samsung is the major contributor to that. So we hope with this AIML framework, you should be able to actually work out the workflow implementation for all the AIML feature management. In the AIML itself, you will have the training platform as well as the inference platform. It should all be covered, with this framework, and hopefully they will be aligned well with the working groups as well as the MVPC feature package. As I mentioned earlier, we have 6 months release cycle. So in the past 3+ years, we already have 6 release. So major themes of each release you could see here. From the very beginning, it's the initial elements. So actually we have the seed codes mostly from, I think, AT&T and Nokia. And then starting from the bronze release, we will have the end-to-end scenarios implemented like for RAN communications. For Cherry, it's the life cycle management, and as early stage, the traffic steering is a major theme or use case for XApp development. So in the D release, we have the closed loop processing, say for example, the X apps, right? I'm not sure you will be able to see from the left bottom of that diagram, which is a combination of X apps. So from the bottom, we have the KPI Mon X app that consume of the KPI data. And then up there, it's called QoE, like quality of experience prediction. So it also can work with anomaly detection, and eventually, based on all this prediction output, the traffic steering should be able to determine what to do. Certainly, we don't have the RAN control ready at the moment, so it just like print out certain log message to say, oh, I need to do traffic steering as this. So the other one on the diagram, actually it's showing a network slicing use case. It's an implementation by using DU only. I don't think I have the time to go through the details right now. And from the F release, we have the O cloud. That's the infrastructure layer. So it means we wanted to have this cloud infrastructure as the base. Then later on, we will use SMO as the centerpiece, so that you should be able to use SMO to onboard and deploy other network elements. So in the G release, we are trying to use SMO maybe to onboard a CNF or VNF. We haven't decided yet. I don't think I wanted to go through much of the detail here. That's just a quick status of the contributions in the open source. So you could see from industry plus years, there are about 20 million lines of contributions. And you could see the main contributors are mostly from our TOC member companies like AT&T, Nokia, Ericsson, and others. All right, a little bit about our open labs. So by actually starting from the very beginning, there was this North American East Coast lab located in Bedminster, New Jersey, which is maintained by AT&T. So this is the very first, and it's the full compute, storage, and networking capable labs. And it also allows public access and resource sharing. Means if you obtain a VPN account, then you should be able to access the network and get maybe like VM access, depending on what your usage is. So in the past, it's still like a pairwise testing between various OSC subjects, right, sub-projects. And later on, in the past release, we have implemented like 3 O-Cloud resource pools. It means you have a single server for a simplex, and the double servers for duplex, and 2+ servers for, it's called duplex plus. And we are trying to, onboard more and more OSC projects on top of the O-Cloud. And lately, one work we're trying to do is trying to deploy a commercial OCU binary provided by Redis on top of this O-Cloud. And starting from later last year, there are another 2 open labs still in its setup stage. One is by China Mobile in the Silicon Valley. We just use some of the server resources in the office over there to be a software-centric, and its focus in the near term will be RIC and accept testing. And also we're conducting a proof of concept work with Keysight using the OSC near real-time RIC and SMO to work with, it's called the RIC test, a test simulation tools from Keysight. Another major development was in Taiwan from the Asia Pacific Lab. This is by the National Taiwan University of Science and Technology. So they are making good progress over there and try to kind of mimic what's the full setup from the Bedminster lab. But both the 2 later labs are not open to general public yet. So just a very quick look at the lab diagram. So I'm not sure you can see it very clear, but the idea is that we will have different network elements all put together, and because the whole ecosystem is not there yet, so we have like the core emulators as well as the RU emulators as well. So I hope if you have time, you can take a deep, close look at how we already have today with the lab. Yeah, I already mentioned, the open source, right? We are open source. We work with other open source from upstream, like ONAP, which is mainly used for the non-real-time RIC. The Yakoto and the Starling X are those contributing to our infrastructure for the O-Cloud. And for the AI/ML workflow, we may have the kubeflow and the Kserve, from the upstream projects. And today we also have a representative from OAI that can talk about the open air interface, which is a potential collaboration, that we can work with. Very quick on our ongoing and the future work. I already mentioned, this AI/ML framework, which is essential to the intelligence pillar for ORAN Alliance. So in the current release, this will be a very standalone, which means it does not interact with existing other OSC projects. But in the future, for AI/ML to work properly, they may need to work with like SMO, non-real-time RIC, near real-time RIC, and others, right, into the future. Another major piece would be the SMO and O2 integration. As I mentioned, on top of the O-Cloud, we would like to have the SMO to be able to onboard other projects to deploy, right? I won't go into too much details here. One last thing to mention is this automated testing, because we do believe, the integration and test work would be essential for the OSC, and especially into the future for the interoperability work. Okay, to learn more, I just list a couple things here. The wiki page, you can find the majority of the information. And if you have any questions, you can email your question to this discuss email address of OSC. And per my understanding, the organizer will allow us to play the ORAN-SC F and the G release demo videos all day today. And I will update the audience maybe later on because I need to talk to them to get the details. Yep, I think that's all about my presentation. Thank you very much.